Hello. Have you seen those Mattel DC basic figures? You see the articulation that they put in them? Right now they have yet to announce their collector line, but if the Masters of the Universe Chronicles series is anything to go by, that DC collector line is going to be fucking nuts. And that's got me thinking, where does that leave Marvel Legends? So as a Legends collector, I have an idea for Hasbro that could turn the tables, or at least put them on an even playing field. Comic collectors, you're gonna love this. MCU collectors, not so much. It's an idea that I originally wrote for that MCU figures are being held back video that I did like a year ago, but I didn't include it because I thought it would be too distracting from the actual message of that video. I'll link it somewhere around here. But something I touch on in that video is that MCU and comic book legends have different audiences that they're catering to. MCU figures have to use a lot of new tooling to be as screen accurate as possible, match the designs of the movie. And because superhero costumes in movies are like highly detailed, they have to use a lot of deco to recreate that detail. And on top of that, the articulation has to be kind of on par with comic book figures. Comic book figures have to often reuse bodies, and they use the bare minimum amount of deco that they can. And while the articulation is a little bit better than MCU figures, it's basically stagnated. And that's wild for a line that was so well known for its articulation when it first started. A result of that is that comic book figures are kind of subsidizing MCU figures. The balance is just way off. And yes, Hasbro occasionally throws in a super articulated figure at that base price point, and the Maximum series exists, but it seems like Mattel's DC collector line is essentially going to be the same as Hasbro's Maximum line, but at half the price, minus all the extra accessories. With the same budget that they have now, how is Hasbro going to compete with that? The only thing they can really do is rest on the laurels of the Marvel brand. Something needs to change. Being a Marvel Legends collector, I have a somewhat controversial opinion. I think if you've been following my logic here, you might know what I'm about to say. If MCU figures are up here, and comic book figures are down here, MCU figures need a reduction in their articulation to bring comic book figures up to par with Mattel's hypothetical DC collector line, and honestly a lot of the other adult collectible toy lines on the market. Maybe even surpass other toy lines. Now, I'm not saying that MCU figures need to be reduced to basic figures. I think if they were to copy the level of articulation in the Black Series, that would bring things a little bit more in balance. Unfortunately, I think that would mean losing the butterfly joints, going back to single-jointed knees and elbows, which I think have actually come a long way and can get well past 90 at times. Keep the diaphragm joint, and maybe get rid of cuts like thigh and boot swivel. Really take that piece count down as much as you can to give it to comic book figures, which desperately need them. Include points of articulation like a ball and socket pelvis, ball hinges at the wrists and ankles, an additional ball and socket at the base of the neck. And if Hasbro really wanted to one-up Mattel, they could use Mafex-style shoulder joints. And most importantly, on every single comic book figure, male or female. That I could see competing with Mattel's DC collector line. So you're probably thinking right now, wow, that sounds fucking stupid. I'm going to try and be a little bit evil here and convince you otherwise. I'm going to try and spin this so it's both good for Hasbro and the consumer. So we know that these figures take a year to 18 months to actually create, from design to actual finished production. And when it comes to MCU figures specifically, it really doesn't make sense to create these specific high piece count figures that might end up not even being screen accurate. For example, I bet Hasbro had a leader figure done, aluminum or steel, ready to cut. But then Marvel decided, hey, we're going to change the entire concept of the Captain America movie that we're making, and because of that, Hasbro has to cancel their leader figure. By reducing their piece count, like I said, Hasbro reduces their liability, especially if they had already made the molds. That's less money than they would have to waste otherwise. But this whole idea doesn't mean that Hasbro can't create a different tier of MCU figure, especially for characters like Spider-Man who really need that super articulated scheme. Honestly, this is where a Maximum series would make the most sense. Don't waste your money on outdated concept art. Wait for your designs to be truly screen accurate, then create the figure. Include all that necessary detail and a deluxe articulation scheme on par with the comic book figures. That's your Maximum line that you set at a slightly higher price point, just like Mattel does with their WWE line, their basic, elite, and ultimate collections. So, to summarize, if DC's collector line is anything close to what I think it's going to be, Marvel Legends needs to step up to compete. And personally, I think the best way to do that is to reduce the amount of articulation on MCU figures so that comic book figures can have articulation that rivals the days of Toy Biz. Go back to your roots. Invest in articulation. And I swear to God, you can do it in a way that costs either the same amount of money or not that much more. But if you like this idea, or at least understand where I'm coming from, give this video a like. That's going to be the easiest way for you guys to give me feedback so I can see what the temperature of the room is. If you watched last week's video, I mentioned that hype feature. I didn't know that you had to be part of the YouTube partner program for that to actually work. But actually, I think I have the watch hours to at least apply for the partner program. So who knows, by the time this video goes up, maybe. Keep it in mind for the next video. Or maybe the next video after that. But in the comments, let me know, what are your feelings on this? Not just my stupid idea, but Mattel's DC collectible line. Are you excited for it? I'm fucking excited for it. And maybe subscribe if you liked this kind of video. Next week, I think I'm going to talk about that inverted ab crunch that's on super articulated figures. And honestly, how the ball and socket waist, really the pelvis. The ball and socket pelvis is just so much better. And honestly, it has nothing to do with articulation. I mean, it does, but I'm going to use that line in the video. I think I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Glen, and this is Super Articulated. How does this look? Does this make me look like an asshole? Does this make me look badass? Shit. Okay. I forgot to ask. Somebody mentioned that this show feels cozy, and I kind of want to lean into that. If there are any suggestions you guys have to make this set or anything about the presentation feel more cozy, let me know in the comments.